Is still feedback on the Instagram, or is it okay now?
I think it's okay now.
There's still some feedback there.
You're just buffering on Instagram. Yeah,
is there feedback on your Instagram?
I actually hear you.
Sorry, 1 second. Say again.
I just said the Instagram, you're just kind of buffering. Like, I can't actually hear you from Instagram. I can only hear you from the Facebook end kind of thing.
Right, okay. That might be the internet connection. Just give me 1 second. I'll be back, okay?
No problem. Okay, you're kind of back now, but it's quite buffering a lot.
I'm just going to switch this to my hotspot. Okay. Is Instagram any better now?
It's just buffering still, but we'll give it a few seconds.
Okay. Seems to be fine from our side. Yours is buffering.
Okay, I can see you now. You all good at your end now?
Yeah, inshallah.
Inshallah. Sounds good.
Okay.
Alhamdulillah, I think we're now live on Facebook and YouTube. So inshallah, we will begin. So first of all, apologies for all the technical issues that we're experiencing just as our first episode. A very warm Assalamu alaikum to everyone listening from around the globe. Welcome to Cradle to the Grave, a new podcast with Sheikh Amr Jamil, focusing around life's big events. I'm your host for today, Usman, and alhamdulillah, we're joined as always by Sheikh Amr Jamil. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Assalamu alaikum.
How are you keeping, Sheikh?
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, I'm fine. With yourself?
Alhamdulillah. Getting through the technical difficulties as always seems to be the issue in life these days. We didn't have these issues years ago. But yeah, alhamdulillah. So our topic for today is birthright and years of parenting. Obviously, such an important topic in today's day and age when more than ever, really, we need legitimate guidance on how to navigate life's big obstacles. If you have any questions for Sheikh, we've already received a lot of questions, probably more than we'll be able to get through, unfortunately. But we've received a lot of questions. If you haven't, if you want to ask some questions to Sheikh Amr on the topic of birthrights and the early years of parenting, then please do post it either in the Instagram comments or on the Facebook comments as well, inshallah. And we'll get started now, inshallah. So, Sheikh, I've heard you've spent the year in Istanbul. I guess my first question to you would be, what differences did you note in that kind of Islamic environment? We've had a few questions already asking about, should we be educating our children? Should we be emigrating to Islamic countries to emigrate to teach them? Has it gone too far in this country, the way things are going with various issues that we can't even educate them here anymore? So that was, I guess, the first question that we have.
Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. So I'm getting a bit of feedback. Are you hearing anything?
Is that better there?
Is your phone on mute, or is it on like the lowest volume?
My phone is on mute, yes.
Right, okay. Have you got any earphones? Stick some earphones in.
Inshallah, I'll get some earphones, inshallah.
Yeah, because the earphone sometimes solves the problem. And I'll just grab some earphones just in case as well.
The echoing issue that we were having.
We just ask everybody, because I found that when you use earphones, it usually solves it. Just ask everyone what they think now.
So if everyone could just let us know in the comments, inshallah, and let us know if the echoing is still there, and if so, we'll continue. Okay, they're saying the echoing is still there. I think that's what yes means. Oh, they're saying it's okay. One person's saying it's sorted. Yeah, they're saying it's all good.
Excellent. Okay, good. That seems to be problem solved now. Yeah, sorry, what was your question?
So, you've been in Istanbul for the last year. A lot of people were asking about emigrating to a Muslim country to educate your children. Do you think that's something that's a good idea?
Well, I mean, the general position is that wherever you live in the world, you should be able to practice your religion. Okay, and if you can no longer practice your religion, you migrate to a place where you can practice it. Now, in the past, it was quite a simple. I mean, when you look at the books, it's quite a simple mas'ala, because in the past, generally Muslims lived in Muslim lands and non-Muslims lived in non-Muslim lands, and the way that the world was, it was very black and white. There's a lot of intolerance. So say like in the Christian world, they wouldn't tolerate, and like say Great Britain, they wouldn't tolerate 1,000 years ago mosques and Muslims living there. So generally the position of scholars in the past would be live amongst Muslims so you can freely practice. So that's the principle. However, I think that now it's not so clear cut anymore, and I think people don't realize that it's not so clear cut. So they might read these things in previous books and take it straight at the book, but I don't think it's as clear cut as that. So, I mean, I've been living in Istanbul, and previously I have lived in the Middle East, or you could say Muslim countries. And I think it's also good to ask people who live in Muslim countries, who are from the UK, expats, what their experience is. But generally speaking, the nature of the world now, there's so many Muslims that live in non-Muslim lands, and also the Muslim countries themselves, their culture has been influenced so much by by say cultures which are foreign to them, or would have been foreign to them. In fact, I was listening to Imran Khan, who's launched a new curriculum in Pakistan, and he was saying one of the problems with the English medium, and he actually went through that system, is that he said it's not just that they're taught in English medium, but he goes, they're taught a culture which is alien to their own culture, and so it creates a inferiority complex, as if it's not worth studying your own culture, it's worth studying another culture, a foreign culture. So taking all that into account, Muslims Muslims living in Muslim lands also struggle with their faith, because they're also on Facebook, they're also on Instagram, they're also digesting the same news that we're digesting. So as they say, the world is a global village now. So the thing is, it's not as straightforward as it once used to be. So I think that's where it becomes a bit more complicated. And so I know people who, and I've there's like one of our parenting experts that we've used at Unity Farm Services, Sister Sumbula Qureshi, who's excellent. And having discussed it with her, she's said that people go abroad and they think that will solve the problem, and lo and behold, it doesn't solve the problem. They still got the problem there, because we tend to look externally. So we think that the madrasa, the school, the environment, that's the most important influencing factor on children, whereas in actual fact the most important factor which influences children is the relationship with the parents. So all of us, if you look at the hadith that says, "Kullu mawludin yuladu ala fitra," every child is born on the fitra, on the innate kind of natural disposition, which is to submit to God. But then it says its parents are the ones that will make it a Christian. Its parents are the ones that will make it a Jew, a Jewish person, or the parents will make it a Magian, like fire worshippers. Now, interesting, it doesn't say the environment will make them a Christian. It says the parents, right? So that shows you the power of the influence of the parent. And when that relationship is not good, that affects every aspect of that person's life as they grow up. That will affect their relationships with other people. It will also affect their marriages, because one of the things I've been doing, in fact, we just finished yesterday, was the pre-marriage course that I run before you say I do. So it's a 6-week course that we ran, and that was one of the aspects we were exploring, people's parental relationships, because your first frame of reference of a marriage is what is your parents, right? Your first relationship in the world that you form primarily is with your mother. So all of those factors, they have the most influence on a child. So yes, we think, well, I've got problems with my children. It must be the fact that they go to school here, they're mixing with non-Muslims, they're picking up these ideas, or it's the madrasa system's not good enough, it's out of date, or it's whatever, XYZ. But the thing is, if you go to a Muslim country and they've been playing video games in the UK, they're not going to stop playing video games, if you go to the Middle East. In fact, I know someone who I visited here who's from the UK, and lo and behold, there was a PS in his living room for his kids, you see. So the thing is, the same things, it's just a different environment. And the thing is, it's just that in these countries, the challenges are slightly different. So I think that the nature of this world is to test us. The nature of this world is to put us through our paces. And wherever we are, we're just going to face different challenges, but definitely we will face challenges. So I think rather than looking externally, we need to look internally and fortify that relationship with the child. And the initial period, the first 7 years, which is often neglected because the children at that age don't have much power. So if you say, stop doing that, you can, because you have the power to do it. And then, when as soon as the shoes on the other foot, they become teenagers, they're like, oh, my kids are out of control now. It's because that work, that nurturing work, which was supposed to be done from the bonding age, in those formative years, was never done. So the connection between the child and the parent was already so poor that if something starts, very poor, it's not going to get stronger, is it? It's going to get poorer and poorer. So you have to then, strengthen that bond. And it doesn't mean that if you're late and you got things wrong in the past, you can't undo it. You can always undo it. You can always turn things around. But I think people miss those early years, and then they end up trying to play catch up. Really, when teenagers come about, most parents are pulling their hair out and don't know how to deal with them. Although today we're kind of talking about more with the earlier. So in short, your answer to the question is that by moving, I think the problem will move with you. It will not go away. And I remember years ago, I was in Yemen, and this is years ago, and there was a brother who, and if you've ever been to Tarim, it's like one of the safest environments you could ever imagine. I mean, there's no billboards, there's no, all the external stuff which we see in the rest of the world, you don't really find it there. All the women, like for example, they wear niqab. There's no, nudity, nothing at all, right? It's like the mosques everywhere. People are generally practicing, etc., etc., etc. And he said, despite doing all that, he still had issues with his kids, and he's scratching his head thinking, I've just moved all the way across the world. I've put them in this pure environment. They've got all these good people around them. Why are they behaving like this? Until he said, it dawned on him, the problem's coming from me. You see? And that's a bitter pill to swallow, because obviously it's easy to say, well, let's just get the kid a tutor. I'll pay whatever it is. The tutor will do the hard work. The madrasa will do the hard work. The Quran teacher will do the hard work. The scholar will do the hard work. You know, the school I'll send them to the best private school. They'll do the hard work for me. But you cannot export parenting. You can't outsource it. You can outsource, you know, call centers to around the world, but you can't outsource parenting. Parenting, you have to do it yourself. You just and the thing is, kids, as you know, you can't pull the wool over a kid's eyes. They see straight through anything which doesn't fit, and anything which is hypocritical, they'll see it straight away. So if you're teaching them all these great morals in summer schools and so forth, but then when they're coming home, they're seeing that you don't practice what you preach, or you don't practice what they've been learning in school, then they think, well, it can't be really that important, because if it was that important, my mum and dad would be doing it.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting what you're saying as well, Sheikh, about this idea of we always look externally, but actually we need to look within ourselves. And I guess as well as that, there's the fact that things, you know, we're talking, people often want to kind of, you know, go to another country or find that external fix, but things are becoming so globalized now anyway. You know, I know you mentioned Yemen is maybe one of the few exceptions, but everything's becoming so almost westernized that even if it was a fix to move abroad, most places you're going to find the same westernized type of issues in those places, if not now, in 10 or 20 years anyway.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, like, in recent times, people might be surprised, but atheism has actually been on the rise in Muslim countries. So places where it would have been unheard of before, like Pakistan, like Saudi Arabia, like Egypt, because a lot of the political turmoil that happened with the Arab Spring, there's a lot of factors to it. But there's atheism has been steadily rising. So again, it's not like the living in those countries makes you immune somehow. You still have to do the hard graft.
Yeah. No, okay, Sheikh. As I said, we do have a lot of questions to get through. If you do have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the comment section below. So Sheikh, the next question we have is a very kind of broad question, but also a very important one. It's how do we instill the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our children?
I mean, the short answer, right, to a lot of the questions is, if you want your child to love the Quran, you have to love the Quran. If you want your child to pray, you've got to pray. If you want the child to read Quran, you've got to read the Quran. If you want your child to have good morals, you have to have good morals. You can't expect the child to be honest when you're dishonest. You can't expect the child to be respectful when you're disrespectful. You can't expect the child to be kind when you're not kind. So, and again, people find it difficult because, instead of saying, well, the quick fix is get them a good, I don't know, just do 1, 2, 3 steps and that's it. That's me done, dusted. It's like, it's hard work because now you're telling people you need to change. And that's hard. It's hard work to work on yourself and change your own behavior. So in reality, that is the answer. The answer is, if you want your child to love God, to love religion, to love the Prophet, if they see that growing up, that my parents, talk the way they talk about God, they hold it in a lot of, they speak with high respect when they talk about Allah, when there's so much love when they talk about the Prophet, because children.
Sheikh, I'm not sure if it's myself or yourself, but there's a lot of breaking up at the moment.
From my end, it looks like it's your side, and I think can people just let us know whose side it's on, because I think Usman has disappeared. So I will just yeah. So I can see you on Instagram. I can't see you on the Facebook. But anyway, we'll continue. Inshallah, I can still hear you. So I think the short and long of it is that if you want your child to be good, you have to be good yourself, to be honest. So, and again, that then is hard work, because then you have to really start reining yourself in. You have to really start doing a lot of self-reflection and thinking, well, am I hypocritical when I speak? Because when I speak, do I then go back in my word? Because if you do, then the child will see that. And if you're different outside the home and you're different inside the home, the child will see that as well. And then what you're teaching the child is to be like that as well. That you can be a different person outside and a different person inside. So the long and short of it is that you have to basically sort your own behaviour out if you want your child's behaviour to be sorted.
So another similar kind of question, but one that's perhaps more specific. In terms of young children, we know that in terms of new laws for LGBT, in terms of gender transitioning, all these things are becoming more and more common within the United Kingdom and are being introduced at a much younger age than ever before. I think primary school, after primary 1, primary 2, these things are being taught. How do we deal with these new laws? How do we deal with them? What do we do? Do we teach our children what the right way is?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I think first and foremost, you do whatever you can. So through I think one of the practical ways is people getting involved in their schools. I know there's one of our friends so a scholar in London, Shams Doha. He's done a lot of work on this. I think he's run some courses as well. And the way because we have discussions amongst ourselves, he says that, look, we need to get involved in our schools. So getting involved in our schools and getting on the school board, becoming a more active parent in the school is one particular way. Again, that requires taking out some of your time out. It requires a bit of hard work. People don't like answers with this hard work, but that is really what we need to do from one perspective. And the second perspective is, again, and the key word here, as our parenting expert at Unity always mentions, is connection. The word is connection. So you have to have a solid connection with your child. So you should be talking to your child. You should be, you should show them a lot of physical affection, and you should make them feel good in your presence. A lot of the times, the kind of traditional way we were parented, we were kind of scared of our fathers. A very kind of formal relationship that has to change. It doesn't mean that you don't have rules, but it needs to be a more loving, nurturing kind of relationship. And I think if that's there, then the child, whatever they pick up from school, because remember, if you just put LGBT to the side, there will be other issues that the child is going to come across in school, which are going to conflict with our faith. So there's always going to be things which conflict. But, when we were young, what were we told? Well, we're Muslims, we don't believe that. So other people might eat haram, but we don't eat that, right? We eat halal. So the child then knows, okay, they do that, but I don't do it. Alcohol, well, their parents might drink it, we don't drink it. When it came to boyfriend issues, girlfriend issues, even though your teacher might tell you it's fine, don't worry about it, it's not a problem, but we were taught, no, that's okay for other people, but not for us. So the thing is, it's just an extension of that. They might get taught about evolution in school, that we're descendant from apes and so forth, but we have our own worldview, we have our own narrative. So I think that's also important to teach children that not everything an adult tells them in life is necessarily true, even if that's at school. And they should have a critical mind. They should have, they should question things. They should even question their teachers. Obviously, we can explain to them that there's always going to be things which will conflict with what our worldview is, and that's fine. People are different. Not everyone's a Muslim. Not everyone follows our way. And the same way, they can't expect us to accept everything that they do, right? We have, for example, marriage is very important to us. For other cultures, it's not so important. The most important thing is that people are living together. So there's always things that are going to be in conflict with our faith. Whether it could be another thing tomorrow. LGBT is just the new trend now. So I think if those conversations are, if this connection's strong with the child, and the child, if all the influences in life, obviously parents are one, your peers are another, obviously internet, so there's multiple inputs, isn't it, of information. But if the child knows that out of all of them, the most important one, the most trustworthy source is what? Wikipedia? No, right? It's my parents, isn't it? It's my mom and dad. So what my mom and dad say, irrespective of what everyone else is saying, I want to know what my parents are saying. And if that is there, then you're sorted. You see, you're sorted, because it doesn't matter what issue it is, you will be able to talk to your children and say, look, that is another viewpoint, but it's not our viewpoint. So it just becomes an extension of that. So obviously we can, there's a political wing to this, which is, our political leaders or religious leaders or community leaders engaging with the government, engaging with people in places of power to say, look, this kind of discussion should be happening at such a young age and so forth. And there's other people, there's like the Christian community which are involved. That is fine, but remember, you are a minority, and there's always going to be laws that are going to be passed which conflict with your religion. So you have to accept that to a certain extent. I remember years ago, there was the whole discussion about homosexuality, when they wanted to make civil partnerships. They wanted to move from civil partnerships to marriage, and big commotion. I think I just kind of got back from my studies. It wasn't that long after it, and there was khutbahs being said about this. There were petitions being signed and so forth. And the thing is, that's all fine. But I remember you're 1.5. I mean, in Scotland, you're about 1.5 to maybe 2% of the population. In the UK, you're 4% or 5%. You have to be realistic. You're not 50% of the population where your opinion is extremely strong. You don't have a huge presence in Parliament, etc. So in an environment like that, you just have to be pragmatic. That all the parties were for it. It doesn't mean that we change our stance, but we have to be pragmatic. Yes, we're going to make our viewpoint known, but we don't put all our eggs into that basket that this is the solution. It's not. Okay, you have to think, well, tomorrow this may become law, and if it becomes law, how are we going to deal with it? So there's always going to be something new coming up, I think. And if there's any time and any a time that parenting has to be sorted, it's our time now. Because if you can imagine that's what's happening today, can you imagine what's going to happen in 2-3 years time, 5 years time, 10 years time? These issues are just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And what we're going to do every time, are we going to just sign petitions and then wait for the law to go through? We have to say, well, what is our stance? What is our perspective? And our perspective, like I said, is okay. Let's sort the parenting out now. Let's educate our community, make that parenting solid, so that the children will automatically go back to their parents to have these discussions and take their lead, as opposed to getting it from other places.
Yeah, no, and I think it's very interesting what you mentioned about encouraging children to make sure that they can ask questions. And I think it's, you can back me up if you agree, that something that people often comment on the course that you run at Syllabus is that they often comment that when they were perhaps in the mosque or when they were with their parents when they were younger, they felt that they couldn't ask questions. They felt they had to just accept things as they are. Yeah. And then when they came to Syllabus, it was, you can ask these questions, you can ask whatever you want. No question is stupid. Is that something you've experienced, Sheikh, with the course? I know you've got that course starting up in about a month, inshallah.
That's right. So the Syllabus course, myself and Sheikh Ridwan, we've been running it for 12 years now, alhamdulillah, and we've been teaching it year in, year out. It's a 1-year course, 1 evening a week, and that was one of the feedbacks, that we gave a forum where people could just be open and ask any question without feeling that I'm going to be judged, or I'm going to I'm going to get told not to ask those type of questions. Unfortunately, we were raised with that kind of rote learning, A lot of the times our elders didn't know the answers, so they were just like, well, we don't know, just that's what we do. But again, it's not, that was fine for that time, but it's not going to work going forward. Going forward, we have to be well informed. We have to know our perspective so that you can understand it and hold fast to it and have confidence in it. And so, you know, when other people come with their ideas, that's fine. You know, that's no problem. You have your ideas. I have my ideas, not a problem. And also we can see through false arguments, because what's happening is that they're trying to put so much pressure that you can't even say anything about these things anymore. And I think that's where you have to be very clear. So, for example, homophobia is what fear of homosexuals, isn't it? Or homosexuality, right? It's a fear. Like Islamophobia is a fear of Islam, right? So if we're saying, well, that doesn't fit with our worldview, right? The actual action of it, it's not the thoughts. The thoughts are different. If you have involuntary thoughts, you're not held accountable for that. It's the acting upon it. But we would say, look, but acting upon it, it's not permissible from an Islamic perspective. That's not homophobic. Because if I'm just disagreeing with the other person, if the other person says, well, that's homophobic, and you see this on these breakfast shows and stuff, this is the kind of nonsense they come out with. The response to them is, well, I think you're an Islamophobic, and they say, well, how's that? Because you don't believe in God, you don't believe in the Prophet, you know. So if you don't believe in Allah and the Messenger, does that mean you're homophobic because you don't agree with my worldview? No, it doesn't, does it? It just means that you have a different view. That's exactly the same thing. I have a different view, but you're free to believe what you believe. I'm not forcing you to believe in God and the Messenger, right? And you can't force me to believe whatever you want me to believe. I'll believe what I want to believe, but that doesn't mean I go around, involved in criminal activity and beating people up and all that kind of stuff, right? As long as I'm not harming other people, I can hold to my view, and I'm not going around offending people, right? I can hold to my view, just like, you are entitled to believe what you want, not even believe in God, right? That's up to you, right? But that doesn't mean that I should take offense that you don't believe in God. Same way, you shouldn't take offense if I don't believe in your perspective on homosexuality or LGBT plus or whatever else it may be. So I think, we have to kind of educate ourselves that, look, to see through these kind of arguments and just hold our ground. End of the day, we're accountable for our words and actions, and we're going to face God, and we have to be able to face Him with a clean heart. And we don't want to say things that we don't believe. But again, you can be wise as well. You don't have to. I mean, some of the things that were said at that time about homosexuality, it wasn't the wisest thing to say. So you have to pick and choose how you say things, but hold to your principles.
No, so we've got two questions, kind of in a similar light, that have come in. A lot of people have been asking about how to know when you're ready to have children, and then we also have Kazim from Manchester asking if a woman is having a child, how does a woman prepare in the run-up to giving birth, both practically and spiritually?
Okay, I mean, right time to have children. I think if you speak to most parents, they'll say there was never a right time. It was hard work. But I think when I advise people when they get married not to have children in the first year of marriage, so that you kind of settle yourselves, you establish your relationship, because a child does take up a lot of time. You can't return the child, right? Once it's there. So I do say that, in terms, and you just kind of prepare yourself for that experience. But a lot of it, we're human beings. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to get things right. We're going to make mistakes. Going to get things right. That's part and parcel of life. Nobody gets everything 100% correct. So I don't think there should be an irrational fear of having children. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they come with their own destiny and so forth. But we have to do our job. That's it. Whatever God's asked us to do, look after them to the best of our ability. That's what we have to do. So when, the first thing is, as you know, the dua that you're supposed to read when you're intimate with your spouse, because the hadith says that shaitan will not harm that child if it's conceived. So that's the first thing that you have to do when it comes to parenting. And then when during the pregnancy, there's obviously just like we know physically, if you smoke and so forth, it has an effect on the child. Physically, so also spiritually, if you're anxious all the time, if you're mentally not in a good space, that can also affect the child. So to try to be in good spirits, our scholars do recommend reading like a lot of Quran, doing a lot of dhikr, also having a noble intention, having a good intention. And our intention shouldn't be all worldly, in a sense that I want my child to be a doctor, I want my child to be this, which is fine, but a doctor who's an atheist is no use to anyone, right? So in terms of from our faith perspective, so the most important thing you should be asking is that whatever that child may be in life, that they are a pious child, walad salih. Because the hadith that says 3 things will benefit after your death, it says the third thing is waladun salih yad'u lah, a righteous child who makes dua for the parents. So so making an intention, a good intention for the child, having good intentions for the child, and generally trying to be in good spirits, trying to look after yourself physically and mentally and emotionally, and like I said, lots of Quran dhikr to the best of your ability. Obviously some women they suffer a lot of morning sickness and so forth, so to the best of their ability, inshallah ta'ala. And then obviously when the child is born, we have a number of sunnah practices that we're supposed to do. The first one is doing the adhan in the child's ear, right ear, the iqama in the left ear, the tahniq, which is getting someone of who we believe to be a good person to they used to say the children to the Prophet used to put like a date, like the fleshy part of the date, a very small part, into the palate of the child, and then you have the aqiqah, which is slaughtering an animal and feeding your friends and family as an act of gratitude, shukr, for this child coming into the world, shaving the head of the child and weighing that and giving it in sadaqah, and then also naming the child a good name, inshallah.
Inshallah. In fact, that was one of the questions that we had, Sheikh, about giving the child a good name. People were asking, how do we know what a good name is, and what's the best way to go about choosing that? These days, it seems like a lot of people are attending the syllabuses and.
Yeah, it's quite a common question that happens when people have children, especially in like people like my relatives or maybe somebody that's close to me. They'll say, look, we're thinking of this name. What do you think? I was told this, I was told that. Does it have to be a prophet's name? Does it have to be a companion's name? I mean, the Prophet ﷺ said that give your children good names, because they'll be called by those names in the next life. And we also know that Prophet ﷺ used to change any name which had a bad meaning. So he only changed those names which had a bad meaning. So the most important thing is that the name shouldn't have a bad meaning. Apart from that, it's open forum. It doesn't have to be Arabic. Obviously, it's preferred if you choose a prophet's name, if you choose a companion's name, they're going to be the best of names. There's hadith about Abdullah, Abdurrahman being the best names. So they're the obvious choices. However, it can be a non-Arabic name as long as the meaning is okay. So sometimes people ask, well, they come up with a name, maybe it's Persian origin or it's in Urdu, but it's not necessarily Arabic. As long as the meaning of the name is okay. In fact, I had actually a couple that contacted me through Unity, and this was actually the problem. They had chosen a name which the extended family were not happy with, because it wasn't an Arabic name. It's causing a lot of problems and so forth. So we had this discussion. So as long as it's not a bad name, doesn't have a bad meaning, then that is the most important thing, inshallah.
Inshallah. So it does not have to be an Arabic name. It's just that the most important thing is a good meaning.
Yes, but I mean, obviously, preferred. The preferred names are
Arabic.
well. The preferred names are
Okay.
are the people who have been significant in our history. So Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali. You know, from the companions, Mus'ab, any of the companions, the kind of main ones. Prophets, obviously, you can't get a better name than a prophet's name. And for women, you know, the foremost of women, Fatima, Zahra, Khadija, Ruqayya, and so forth.
Okay. We have another question here about how do we make Eid and Islamic events more engaging for children in today's society?
I think the first thing is, okay, we have this, we have an issue with Eid. We know we don't know the exact date in advance, and we're always kind of the night before we're on the edges of our seats, aren't we? Waiting for announcements to come out of that famous room. But the thing is, you always know it's either a Tuesday or a Wednesday, isn't it? Right. So it's not like it's like completely unknown, but we know it's either going to be a Tuesday or a Wednesday. So it's one of the two. So, you know, if you think of your annual leave, I don't know how much you get, but it's quite a lot. And if we can take time for holidays, then what's wrong with just taking 2 days, just block 2 days rather than getting into that, we should go for Tuesday or Wednesday, I'll guess. Just go for both. And if you do it well in advance, I mean, sometimes you can't, but if you do it well in advance, you know, 6 months, a year, then you should be able to negotiate that. And that way, then you've blocked off those 2 days. If it does turn out to be the Wednesday and you took off Tuesday, then at least you got the last day of Ramadan, which you can just focus on your ibadah. If it turns out that Eid's on the Tuesday and you have Wednesday, well, you know, you have another day to just spend with your family. So I think you have to give the importance to that day. And, you know, if your children are in a society where when it comes to Halloween, people are giving them sweets, they get to dress up. When it comes to Christmas, they get to play games. You know, people are decorating their homes. You know, people are off work, etc. Then you have to make your day also special, because children are children. Children just want to have fun. So if Christmas is more fun, if Halloween is more fun, then they're going to think, well, Eid's boring because my dad just goes to work. It's just a normal day. We have some sweets or whatever, but the rest of the day it's just boring, nothing to do. But if you make that day fun, so you decorate the home, you give them gifts. So like what I do, or well, not me, my wife does. She like wraps up the gifts and she has them ready on the table with their names. You know, so they get up early on Eid, not to go to Eid Salah with me, right? It's just to get to the presents. And if you say, do you want to go to Eid Salah? No, right? So they just go straight to the gifts, right? So, you know, the home will be decorated. You give them a bit more liberty. So, you know, fizzy drinks, sweets, whatever you want. It's Eid, just you can do what you want. You know, so that's the child's memory of Eid is always going to be that one special day where I could do what I wanted, I could eat what I wanted, I got new toys, I got new clothes, you know, I got out, I went to play, you know, my parents were a bit more relaxed, I got to do all these fun things. You have to fill that day up so that the memory of for the child is when they say Eid, automatically it's like great fun, right? And it shouldn't be Eid, boring day, right? So it's up to us to really make the effort. So, you know, speaking to your family, speaking to your spouse, that you know you need to take the day off work. You can't just work. You know, one day of earnings is not going to, especially when we can take 2 weeks off to go to work. I mean, everyone's situation is different, but to the best of our ability, trying to do that and making it special because we're in that environment where Eid is not an official public holiday. It's just another day. If you just leave it like that, it would just feel like another day. So you have to make it that bit special.
Right. So that's all fair. As well as that, there's people asking about, from an early age, we're seeing lots of people celebrating birthdays of their children. Is this something that's advisable? Is it haram? Is it permissible? What's the ruling on this? And is it something we should be doing?
Yeah, birthdays, you'll find different opinions among scholars. Just go to YouTube. You get very angry answers. Right?
You'll always get angry answers.
That's like the biggest crime under the sun, and it's haram, and you know there's a warm place waiting for you, etc. But you know the reality of it is that the scholars who allow birthdays, and there's big scholars like Abdullah bin Bayyan and so forth, they say that this is more of a cultural phenomena. It's not a religious phenomena. So what we have a problem with is celebrating like Christmas because it's linked to Christianity, right? Or if it was a religious festival of a particular religion, right? But a birthday is not linked to any particular religion. Like Pakistan Independence Day, right? It's not from the Quran Sunnah, right? But the thing is it a problem? No, because it's linked to a country. It's not linked to a religion per se. So there's lots of kind of events we have where we get together just because of the occasion. It's just a cultural thing, and as long as there's nothing wrong in that particular event, then there's no problem, inshallah ta'ala, according to many scholars. What I would say is that what you can do if you haven't done the aqiqah of your child, because you can do the aqiqah later if you haven't done it. It's preferred to do it on the 7th day, 14th day, 21st day, 28th. If you missed that period and it's coming up for a year, then instead of having a birthday, just call it aqiqah, right? Slaughter an animal, invite your friends and family, and then you can have cake afterwards anyway, right? So, but just make it an aqiqah occasion, in that way you get reward because your intention is the sunnah. And aqiqahs are really good because one of the benefits I found in doing the aqiqah was that like when you first have a child, people keep coming around to the house to see the child, especially now with COVID and so forth. People are a bit more nervous. But if you have an aqiqah, there's like one event, maybe a month after the child's born, so everyone just comes in that one day and you just get it over and done with. So it doesn't overburden, especially like a new mother or the family, because people keep coming over. You feel you need to cook and so forth, and then it might put pressure on the family, especially if it's the first child and so forth. So the aqiqah's got a lot of benefits, inshallah.
Inshallah. So we have a few more. I know we are coming near the end of our podcast for today, but we have a few more questions for you, inshallah. Two questions kind of on opposite spectrum, but kind of that are related. One is, how do we develop the love of our Prophet ﷺ in our children? And two is, there are many parents who advocate hitting their children if they don't pray, and then they say this is within their religion. They say there's evidence for this. Is there any evidence for it, and is it something that we should be doing?
Sorry, say that again. Sorry, I didn't catch you.
So the first one was, how do we develop love of the Prophet ﷺ in our children? And the second one is people hitting their children if they don't pray, and just hitting their children in general. Yeah.
So the first answer, I think we answered that when we talked about inculcating the love of Allah and the Prophet and the religion, and I basically said, for those who didn't catch it, was you have to show them by example. If they see it in you, because children by their very nature imitate. They imitate everything you do, which is why when you say, don't say that word, and they say, yeah, but you say it, you're like, oh, did I say it? Okay. They catch you out. So their radar is on and nothing escapes them. So, if they see the love of the Prophet in you, they will also take it on board. And also you can do things like, for example, reading a book of Seerah with them. I was doing a practice which unfortunately I stopped. I should really get back to it. But someone gifted me a book, 365 Days with the Prophet. So basically a Seerah book. So I would read it every night with them, like one day. So you basically, you read to them and you talk about the Prophet. And the more you talk about the Prophet and you talk about the Prophet with love, then they will know, okay, this is a figure I'm supposed to love as well. And the second part of the question was, what was it?
It was about hitting children. They don't pray. They're not doing it.
Yeah. So the first thing that you need to know, if you live in Scotland, you'll get arrested if you hit your children. It's illegal. So take that on board. If your kid calls the child line, you're going to be in trouble. The second thing is, yes, there are hadith which say encourage your children to pray at 7, and if they get to 10, because that's getting near the age of puberty, because you can't expect a child to go from 0 to 5. So you want to start encourage them as they get near puberty to be praying, so that when they make that transition, it's easy for them. It says you should be stricter with them, and if necessary, you can physically discipline them. First of all, the understanding of that was a physical discipline which doesn't harm the body. It's not supposed to inflict pain. You can't hit the sensitive places like the face. So all these memories we have of being hit in the face by the Imam Sahib, totally haram. I don't know where it came from. No justification for it. You can't, hit them in the stomach or any sensitive place like that. So the point of it is not to inflict pain, is to get a message across that, look, this is now serious. However, and this is where, however, two things. Well, one, I already said it's illegal. And the second is, what was the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ? So this is the hitting aspect, even if it's like very mild, it's something which is permissible. We would say it's permissible. You don't have to do it. But the higher way is the sunnah. The Prophet ﷺ, we know, did not hit anybody. He did never, the hadith says he never hit a woman or a child, right? So the sunnah is to actually, that we should be following, is to be able to discipline your children without being needing to physically discipline them. And because of the environment we live in now, it's even more important. Our culture is not like past cultures where it was accepted and the child kind of accepted it as well. It was just a normal thing. It's not normal anymore. Even like, I remember when I started primary school, then I think that's when they were just kind of banning physical punishment in schools at that time. So it's obviously, it's not a huge amount of time ago, maybe 40, 50 years ago, physical discipline in schools was allowed, but it's changed. We've moved on from that. So you have to take into account the environment the child is growing up in, and a successful parent should be able to discipline their child without any physical reprimand. And in the current, with the current climate, with the law, with just the current environment, it would possibly be detrimental to use physical punishment on them, just like in terms of their psychology and so forth. And also, obviously, from a legal perspective, it'd be very problematic.
We've got a quick question, and we'll make this our last one, just about can someone have the name Rahman, or does it have to be Abdul Rahman?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a discussion. Some scholars are of the opinion you shouldn't use it because it's one of the names of Allah. The counter position to that as well, what is actually the name of Allah is Ar-Rahman with a alif and lam, the merciful, right? Whereas if you just say merciful, it's a description, it's a sifa in Arabic, it's not the actual name itself. But the safest thing is to add abd, which is slave of the Rahman. So and that would go for all of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Inshallah. And I know I said that would be the last question, Sheikh. I'll ask one more if that's okay. Yeah. So someone's asking, how do we, when children go to school, everyone's dressing up, celebrating Halloween, everyone's celebrating Christmas. How do we make sure that children don't feel left out when they go to school and everyone else is doing this one thing, but they're not? Yeah,
so I mean, this goes into lots of things, isn't it? Well, everyone's doing it, isn't it? So there's going to be lots of things that will come into that. And I think, like I said, it comes back to the connection with the child, and them understanding that my parent is doing whatever they're doing for the best of, in my best interest. And for example, with Halloween, right? Educate them. So like show them a video of the origins. Where did the origins of Halloween come from? It's very gothic. It's from a dark place. It's not from a light place for a start. So to what you do is we wouldn't like let them dress up as like devils or anything like that. But don't make it a big deal either. If there's a Spider-Man costume in the house lying about, and they're 6 years old, right, and they just want to wear a Spider-Man costume, they don't even know what Halloween is. It's just because everyone's wearing something, costume party. I don't think there's a big problem with it, but we wouldn't put a lot of focus on it, and we'd also explain to them that, look, this is not really, it's fine because everyone's doing it. You can wear your Spider-Man costume because you got it in the house anyway, but this is not something we go out our way to do. And similarly with Christmas, we would say that we have our own celebrations. We have Eid, and we celebrate Eid. But if at school Christmas holidays are coming up and they're playing games, by all means you can play games. If they give you gifts, it's fine. You can accept a gift, but we don't participate in the rituals. And to be honest, Christmas, as you know, is in a lot of places, it's not as they don't follow it as stringently. I mean, from a religious perspective, the way it was, it's kind of more have a tree and so forth. But a lot of the kind of teachings are not really there. It does vary, obviously. If you go to a Catholic school, they would, but it varies from place to place.
No, Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. I mean, I know a lot of the things that we've covered today are, you get these kind of ideas, you get these teachings from the course that you run, Syllabus. Would you mind just to conclude the show, just telling listeners just a bit about the course and the because a lot of these questions I've noticed come up and are mentioned in the course. It being quite a holistic course which covers a really, really broad range of issues which are needed for Muslims living in the West. Yeah,
so we're living in a time where you have to equip yourself with knowledge now. It's not an option because people in the past might have not known. Now everyone's got a phone. They can just Google something, say, does your religion say this? Does your religion say that? And you can't just right. So you have to. We're at a time where we have to, and also your children. We're talking about painting. Your children will ask you questions. Why do we do this? Why do we do that? And we've had students who have gone back and said their parents now want to do the course because when they went home, they said, "Dad, did you know this? Dad, did you know that?" And the parents are like, "I don't know this stuff. I should go and do the course as well." So it's we all have to up our game a little bit in terms of our own understanding of our faith. And because it's such a sea of information out there, you get lost. If you go to YouTube and stuff, you don't know who you should listen to, who you shouldn't listen to. So the course is basically there to give you a holistic understanding of your faith and give you the grounding, inshallah, that can give you the knowledge that you need day to day and get you through life, inshallah ta'ala. And it's not much of a commitment. It's one evening a week for 10 months. So it's not a huge amount. And now it's online. If you can't make it, you can catch up on the recording. You can ask questions throughout the week. We have an app, Montpin, where people are asking questions throughout the week about the lessons, and we answer questions. So it gives you a forum that you have for a whole year where you can get your questions answered, inshallah ta'ala. And it's starting just in about 3-4 weeks' time now.
3-4 weeks' time, inshallah. And I believe the link to the course and more details are in our Instagram bio, or you can go to, I think it's isyllabus.org to find out more information. The course brochure, it tells you the content of the course. Sheikh, alhamdulillah, it's been, I think, a productive session today. Jazakallah khair for coming along. Just to let our listeners know, we've got 3 more weeks of this podcast. Next week, we're going to have a podcast on adulthood and marriage. The week after that will be on divorce and older children. And then the week after that will be on death and beyond. So please feel free to share with family and friends, and feel free to let everyone know. And do send in your questions when we put up the text boxes on our Facebook and Instagram stories. Sheikh, any concluding advice from yourself?
My concluding advice to you would be to save this live, because this often happens to me when I finish it. I mess it up and then people complain. So just a reminder to you. But no, I mean, look, parenting it's not easy. I'm the first to admit it. It's not easy. But inshallah, if we implement some basic rules, it can actually make a huge difference. A lot of the problems is that a lot of the time the problem is that people think the problem is with the child. But like from my discussions with our parenting expert at Unity, in actual fact, it's the parent. It's the parent that needs the advice, not the child. Because if the parent sorts themselves out and how they communicate with the child, you actually see the child will sort themselves out. It's the other way around. And she spends a lot of time just getting parents to understand, I don't need to speak to the child. Like people say, can you speak to my son? He's not listening. Yeah. It's not the son that you need to speak to. It's the parent. It's the parenting that needs to be sorted, not the child. You know, the parenting is a product of the parents. Sorry, the child is a product of the parents. So whatever you put into the child, that's what you're going to get out. So, you know, you don't go to the product, you go to the person who's, you know, manufacturing, isn't it? And say, well, you need to make these adjustments and so forth. So that's my advice for people when it comes to parenting. And in the future, inshallah, I do intend to put together a more kind of robust kind of program. Yeah, structured program, inshallah, to because I think it's a really important area and deal with all the kind of relevant issues and all the kind of practical stuff that we can implement. But inshallah, that's something for the future. So we just ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for all of us. I mean, you know, we have challenges. All of us have challenges, and make it easy for all of us. And inshallah, I look forward to seeing everybody next week. And thank you for coming along today and listening to us. Jazakumullah khair. Shukran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.